welcome back to Inside Number 23, my podcast which is all about sewing and knitting and generally living the craftiest life possible. My name is Katie and I am coming to you as always from Hertfordshire, which is just north of London in the UK. You can find me on all of the social medias as Miss Lavelli, so Instagram and Ravelry and intermittently on Periscope. Haven't been on Periscope for a while, but I do use it. And we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast, which you can find by searching Inside Number 23 in the groups tab. And that's where you can find all of the show notes for the podcast, although I do tend to post them down below on YouTube as well. And yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome back if you're a long time viewer, and a huge big hello and a special welcome to any new viewers who are joining me this week. There are quite a few of you who have hit subscribe recently, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming to spend a little bit of crafty time with me today. So my more long-term viewers are going to think, where exactly are you podcasting from today? I have had a change of location for this episode, and the reason for that I'll get into a little bit later. Nothing dramatic or anything, literally just kind of a spacing issue with what I've been working on over the past week. But I'm coming to you today from the living room of number 23. Can you believe it, you guys? This is the last episode that I will be posting in November of 2016 because we are so close to being in December. It's not even funny at this point. Literally, it is just round the corner and I can't believe it. The time has absolutely flown. Christmas is coming. And yeah, I'm using the word, I'm saying Christmas because it's less than a month away now. I'm feeling relatively relaxed about my Christmas plans this year. I have decided not to knit anything or sew anything or really spend huge amounts of time making things as gifts. That is just a personal choice this year for a sense of ease with the whole thing. And Emrys and I have already got a start on our Christmas shopping, gift shopping and that type of thing. So I do feel that we have a real handle on it, and that hopefully, fingers crossed, is going to make the whole season especially enjoyable. Mostly because we don't get a huge amount of time off around Christmas because of the jobs that we do. We don't kind of get a whole week or 2 weeks around that time of year. So the time that we spend together and with our family is very special. So I don't want it to be too stressful. I want it to be nice and chilled and happy. So yeah, we're getting a lot of it done, hopefully before December even turns that corner. That would be amazing. But talking about Christmas in general, I have got some serious plans going for Vlogmas. Vlogmas is a go-go, guys. There is going to be Vlogmas on this channel in the lead up to Christmas. Again, I'm not going to give away any of the specifics of it yet. It's going to be a little bit different from Vlogtober that I did over October. But yeah, watch this space. And now is as good a time as any to subscribe to the channel if you do like my content, because there will be a lot more coming very, very soon. I feel like I don't have a huge amount to share with you this week. And that's probably because one of the days off that I had this week was spent binge watching the entire new season of Gilmore Girls with my mum, which we actually vlogged and I have video of. So click my hand if you do want to go and watch that vlog if you haven't seen it yet. It's quite fun and we give you our different views on the new season of Gilmore Girls. But yes, because I spent the whole day doing that, I did lose out on some sewing time and that type of thing. I mean, it was worth it. We had a really, really great time. But because of that, I feel like I don't have as much to show you as if I'd had a full day off to just dedicate to crafting. But I do have some fun things to share with you. But before we get started with all of the crafty goodness, I do want to mention a couple of things on the administrative kind of side of things. The first is, obviously, we still have a Colourwork KAL ongoing. It is the Autumn Colour KAL that I am co-hosting with the lovely Marsha of the Twitch and Stitch podcast, and it is going on until December 1st. So you do still have time to enter. I have a thread in my Ravelry group, Marsha does in hers. So, you know, maybe get out a bit of colour work to work on in the last couple of days of November. The other thing that I wanted to mention was actually something that I found out about on Instagram this last week. Lovely Rebecca, who is Bex_in real life, contacted me on Instagram about something incredible that she is going to be doing between the 1st and the 10th of December, which is called the Create Love auction. And the idea of this is that Rebecca has been given has been donated some beautiful handcrafted items, and she is going to be auctioning them off on Instagram between the 1st and the 10th of December. All of the proceeds of which are going to the United Nations High Commission of Refugees Syria Crisis Appeal. And so basically it's to help Syrian refugees. I think it's an incredible thing to do. It really, really, really is. I think that Rebecca, you're amazing for doing this. Thank you so much for getting in touch and asking me to spread the word about this. But guys, head over to Rebecca's Instagram. So like I said, it is Bex_in_real_life. I'll pop that on the screen somewhere for your viewing pleasure. But head over to her Instagram, do give her a follow and just get involved, because this time of year, it really is about thinking about people that do have less than we do, because I know that it's very much consumerism and wanting all of the presents and all of the nice things and that type of thing, but there are a lot of people out there who are considerably more worse off than we are, and I think this is a wonderful time of year to start giving back to that type of thing. So again, Rebecca, you're amazing. Thank you for letting me know about this incredible thing that you're doing, and please guys, go and show her some love, go and show her some support, because it is a really, really, really worthwhile cause to get involved with. Okay, and with that, all of the administrative stuff done and dusted, it's time to move on to some knitting and sewing and general goodness. But I'm going to be starting off this week with, what am I wearing? And yes, I'm in an entirely handmade outfit today, and I couldn't be happier. This genuinely is a combination of some of my most favourite items that I have made in the past year. So let's start off with my dress. You guys are going to recognise this dress because it is pretty much my favourite pattern of all patterns at the moment. This is the Robe Bleuet dress from Deer and Doe. Has these short little puff sleeves. I have this lovely contrast white that I used for the collar and the cuff detail, and I used my lovely Foxgloves fabric, which I purchased from M is for Make here in the UK, which is an incredible store, online based, that I really, really love, and I very much want to buy more fabric from them in the near future. I think they're incredible. So that's the dress that I'm wearing. Definitely a favourite since I made it for my birthday. I feel just so happy when I wear this. It genuinely gives me such a rush and a feeling of joy when I put it on. So it's a very successful make, I think we could say that. I've paired it today with one of my other favourite pieces of this year. This is my Featherweight cardigan, which I made with Voolenvine Yarns in the Gashleycrumb Colourway, and this is the Wolke base, which is an MCN, Merino cashmere nylon blend. It's very soft and very delicate, but also really, really warm. It's been really quite cold over the last couple of days here in the UK. We really have hit kind of late autumn, early winter weather, and it's cold pretty much all the time. If it's not foggy and wet and windy, it's kind of freezing cold with very biting winds. And although, as it's kind of described, the Featherweight cardigan, which is a Hannah Fettig design, in case you didn't know, it's very light and airy and kind of delicate. It's not very, very heavy. This still keeps me so warm, and it just makes me love wool all the more for keeping me so snuggly with something that's so kind of girly and delicate and lovely. And yeah, this colourway is just everything. I love this so much. And that's what I'm wearing today, you guys. I'm very much enjoying wearing it as well, if you couldn't tell from my gushing about both of these items. But moving on from what I'm actually wearing to what's on my needles, because I have managed to get really quite a lot of knitting done this week. And yes, part of that was because I spent 6 hours sitting and watching Gilmore Girls, so a lot of work got done on some projects. But I'm very pleased to say that this week I have a finished object, yay! And technically it's not finished because I did just finish these this morning. They don't have the ends woven in and they haven't been blocked, but I was just so desperate to share them with you because I love them so much. And that is my pumpkin spice socks. They are finally off the needles, and I love them, genuinely. I think this is the first pair of very intricately patterned socks that I've ever completed. It's not the first that I've started, because I have started quite a few, but I tend to just give up partway through because I'm like, oh, it's so much work, all of the detail. But with these, they were so addictive and I love them. I'm going to pop one of them onto my hand so I can show off the pattern. Here we go. Aren't they amazing? So this pattern, if you don't know, is the I Love You More Than Pumpkin Spice socks by Almon of the Geeky Girls Knit podcast. She's an incredible designer, and this design is genuinely one of my favourites of all time. I absolutely love it. This yarn was sent to me as a gift by Kate of Hand Dyed by Kate, and it is the Pumpkin Spice Latte colourway. And these socks are just everything. They are everything. Everything that I could want and more. I love them. I really like how they go with my dress as well because of the little foxes in them. But this pattern is amazing. I must admit, when I started it, I was a little intimidated by the kind of pumpkin motif that runs down the centre. But the more that I worked on it, I just memorised it relatively quickly. And I love them. Because of the rib texture that's used in the back of the sock, they have this lovely, thick, snuggly feel, even though they are just knit with fingering weight. And I genuinely just couldn't be happier with how they turned out. If you can't tell, I'm super, super happy with these socks. I think they're amazing. Love the pattern, love the yarn. It was pretty much the perfect combination. And yes, as I have been for the last several weeks, I'm very much still on a sock kick. All I can think about is knitting socks. So these have really hit the spot for me, I'm not gonna lie. Yay! I'm so happy that they're done. And into the boxer socks they shall go. Because I am taking part in the Boxer Socks KAL, which is being hosted by lovely, lovely, lovely Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and Voolenvine Yarns. You know, she dyed the yarn for my cardigan. But I am under at the moment in terms of 12 pairs. 12 pairs basically for the box of socks you're supposed to knit over a year. And I started off the year very, very strong. I was churning out socks like nobody's business. And then I went through a giant sock hiatus. And it's only within the last month or so that my love of the sock knitting has been completely reignited within me. So maybe I'll make it. We don't know. I don't know, but I'm trying. And I'm particularly happy to add these socks to my box of socks. I don't just have a finished object this week, you guys. I actually have a hoe to share with you as well. Yeah, can you believe it? And I have moved this to one of my favourite project bags. This was a gift from Mel, who I met through lovely Mina of the Knitting Expat podcast. So hi Mel. This is a bag that she made for me, which is covered in little puglets, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favourite project bags. And so I had to put this in it because it's one of my favourite projects. And yes, I finished the first of my August mittens. Isn't this just beautiful? Oh, my August mittens. Isn't this just the most incredible pattern you've ever seen? I love these. Oh, and I'm going to show you the back as well quickly so you can see the texture. It's beautiful. I love these. So yeah, this was in progress last week and I was talking about how much I had been enjoying knitting it, and that is still very much the case. Here it is on. Oh gosh, I can't even handle how adorable it looks on my hand. It's so cute. It's like a little sock puppet of joy. Hello. I'm actually going crazy because I love this mitten so much. I adore it. This was knit with John Arbon Textiles, their Knit by Numbers range, in the 4-ply weight, and it is colour 74, which is this really, really beautiful deep burgundy, which I am so obsessed with. It's not even funny. I love how this has turned out. Look at those cables. It's just incredible. It makes me so happy. And guys, this mitten is so warm. Just having it on my hand right now inside, my hand's getting really, really hot in this. So this is going to be perfect for what I wanted it for, which was for dog walking, because we're walking Rolly twice a day at the moment, and because it's very, very cold, I want to keep my hands nice and snuggly. So this is going to be perfect for that. Oh, I love it so much. I haven't yet cast on the second mitten. I will hopefully do that later today. And yeah, this literally kind of flew off my needles, and I did put a lot of time into it. It was pretty much almost monogamous for a couple of days, my work on this, just because I love it so much and it's so pretty and so satisfying to watch the cable pattern kind of appearing as you go. I can't imagine it will take me very long to finish the second one because I'm just so in love with this. And once that's done, I have the same colour in a DK weight to do a little hat to match. So I will have my winter accessories all ready soon, which is just such a lovely feeling. And I'm really loving the fact that pretty much every item that I reach for on a day-to-day basis to do with my clothes, so cardigans and dresses and accessories like socks, are all becoming handmade now. It's getting to the point where very few parts of my wardrobe are actually shop bought anymore, and I can't tell you how amazing a feeling it is. I'm really, really happy with everything that I've been able to make over the last year, and fingers crossed next year will be just as productive. So I do also have some works in progress to share with you when it comes to my knitting, because as you may or may not seen if you've watched my Gilmore Girls vlog that I made of us watching the new season of Gilmore Girls, I gave you a little sneak peek of a project in there that I have been working on, because very excitingly this week I cast on my first ever pair of 2 at a time socks. Oh, they just... oh, I love these. I really, really love these so much. So this yarn that I have used is by London House Yarns, and I'm a huge, huge fan of them and everything that they do. But this colourway, this self-striping, is something I purchased quite a while ago, but it's the Yule Ball colourway, which is inspired by the Yule Ball from Harry Potter. And I thought that these were particularly appropriate for this kind of time of year because they are very subtly kind of a Christmas colourway, because of the Yule Ball is kind of a Christmas time in Harry Potter. And I love them. This was really easy in terms of getting set up for 2 at a time socks, because the yarn that I bought from London House Yarns was actually a sock duo. So it comes as 2 individual skeins of yarn which you cake up. If I can just show you inside my project bag here. Those are my 2 cakes that I have inside my project bag. They sit in my project bag at all times, and then I knit my 2 at a time socks from them. I also used, I believe this is an opal, just a plain black for the toes. I'm going to do black toes and heels, definitely. I don't think I'm going to do black cuffs. I think I'm going to go for the colour all the way up to the top of the sock. But I just wanted a nice little contrast for the toes and heels, and I think the black goes really, really nicely. This, I'm not going to lie, was a bit of a challenge when I got started, because I've never done 2 at a time socks before. Ever. I've always done my socks separately, but I do tend to suffer from second sock syndrome really quite badly. When I finish a sock, what I want to do is move on to a different sock with a different yarn and a different pattern, rather than having to repeat what I've just done. So I thought that this would be a good thing to try, just to see how I get on with it. And I've taken my advice from lovely Mina of the Knitting Expat podcast. She has a couple of videos on her channel about how to knit 2 at a time socks. She does do her socks cuff down, but the main kind of gist that I got from her videos was about yarn management and that type of thing, which to be honest is what I think is the most important when it comes to knitting these socks, is just knowing how to have your project bag with your cakes of yarn in it, how to set up your needles, which way to turn when you're knitting so that you don't get all tangled up. Once you've kind of mastered that, if you can knit individual socks, this is really, really simple. It's a lot more slow going for me than knitting an individual sock, because obviously you're doing two, and on top of the fact that you're knitting two socks, you also have to deal with the yarn moving around and not getting tangled and that type of thing. So it doesn't feel as free and easy as just getting one sock out and knitting on it. But whenever I started to get frustrated and thinking, wow, this is taking a really long time, I should just separate them and knit them like that, I then reminded myself, yes, but you're knitting two. So you've already got that much work done on two different socks as opposed to just the one. And for me, that just was amazing. I suddenly was like, yeah, I've done like nearly half the foot of two socks already. So I don't know if I'm going to be a full convert to the two at a time method. So many of you have kind of contacted me since I mentioned that I'd be wanting to try this, and you said it would change my life and I would just knit these socks, and that's the method that you use now. And I can definitely see the appeal, 100%. I can really see the appeal of doing socks like this, just because no second sock syndrome. You're getting, by the time I finished, I'll have a pair of socks to wear. But for some things, I really do like working on socks individually. I think I'd only be able to do this for vanilla socks, for example, as opposed to doing it for anything with a pattern. If I'd tried to do my pumpkin spice socks two at a time, I think my mind would have blown. I think my brain would have exploded. But I am really, really enjoying this so far, very, very much so, particularly because this yarn is beautiful. I mean, just look at those colours. And yes, it does have stellina in it, so it's nice and sparkly, but I just love this colourway. It's gorgeous. I'm so happy with it, and I can't wait to have these and be able to wear them because they're amazing. Yay for socks. I just love socks at the moment. I can't get enough of them, which is such a difference from where I was about 2 months ago. It's really quite hilarious. But those are my two at a time socks. And yeah, we'll see how long it takes me to finish them. I don't think it should take a huge amount of time, but it's just so new. I'm just learning new things about it every day, but it's really, really fun and I'm enjoying it. Definitely check out Mina's tutorials if you have never done it yourself and you're thinking of trying it, because she just makes so much sense and her videos in general are fantastic. But I have one more work in progress to share with you in terms of my knitting. It's living in my little Bobbins Bee project bag, which I absolutely love so much. And this is a tiny, teeny tiny baby project that has only just been started, but I had to share it with you because I'm so excited to be using this yarn. And I'm using this tiny cake and this big cake. This is my Nora George yarn in the Toffee Apple colourway, and it's a sock set. So we have this lovely big cake of gorgeousness for the main body of the sock. It has lots of golds and tiny flecks of greens and beautifulness. And in contrast, we have this, just throwing things. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous kind of, I always think of it as a sour apple green. I love it. It's like Granny Smith green. It's beautiful. And I've been wanting to cast these socks on for the longest possible time. And now I'm finally going to do it. I finally have done it, but I have the tiniest amount of work. Here it is. This is my new pair of socks. I've cast on the Mercury socks, which I've been meaning to work on for the longest time. I'm really, really excited to be able to finally cast these on. Completely inspired by Casey of Creative Musings and Kristen of Voolenvine Yarns. But this is my little sock moustache, my little cuff moustache. And so far, I know that I haven't done that much, but I love this colour. It's so gorgeous. It's making me really, really happy. And now that I've finished my pumpkin spice socks, I allowed myself to cast these on because these will be my patterned socks, because I'm allowing myself 2 pairs of socks at a time, one patterned and one vanilla, just to kind of stoke my need for more socks. Because I did have a big sort out of my stash and my project bags over the past week, and I discovered even more sock yarn that I had completely forgotten about, which I wanted to cast on immediately and had to stop myself. So yeah, these are my new patterned socks that I'm casting on, and although I've only done a tiny bit, they are already making me happy just because this colour is just incredible, this green. Oh, it's so good, look at it, look at it. Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of Nora George, in case you didn't know. I'm knitting those one at a time. Like I said, I'm going to continue to knit my pattern socks separately, magic loop, but I am thinking about purchasing some more sock needles so I can knit them consecutively when it comes to pattern socks. So for example, cast on the cuff for one, cast on the cuff for another, do some rows on one, do some rows on the next, just to try and avoid second sock syndrome, because it really is something that I think was one of the main reasons that turned me off sock knitting when I was kind of very into it before, was because I really struggled when it came to casting on that second sock. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm very happy with my formula. I know my stitch count, I know the type of socks, the construction details that I like, so I feel a lot more confident in my sock knitting than ever before. And fingers crossed, I'm gonna have a whole drawer filled with beautiful hand knit socks in the very near future, because that would be just amazing. Next up today is going to be So What. What I'm talking about in So What today is going to make it very clear exactly why I'm downstairs in the house as opposed to up in my sewing room. And that is because during the past week I started my Cascade duffel coat. This is a Grainline Studios pattern. And I've been talking about for the longest time how I was going to how I was going to start sewing this coat. And I'm using some beautiful kind of greeny, bluey tweed, Harris tweed, with a really lovely red tartan hood and detailing, and it's going to be gorgeous. I'm so happy that I'm doing it. And this last week, I started cutting this out, and it was amazing. I had the best time, but I really underestimated just how involved this pattern is. It felt like I had to cut out about 100 different pattern pieces, and that's an over-exaggeration. I think that there are about 40 pieces in the construction of this pattern, and some of those are cut in I think they're cut in both the main fabric and the lining fabric, and then maybe an interfacing as well. So it is a lot of fabric to cut out. So I must admit I haven't actually got beyond the cutting out phase. I'm still in the process of cutting out some of the more complicated pieces. For example, with the kind of plaid that I'm using, I want to make sure that I'm pattern matching really well. So I need to spend a little bit more time doing that. But all of the pieces of my main fabric, so my Harris tweed, are now cut out. And they are currently being laid out in my sewing room. I have a kind of organized chaos system going on at the moment. Everything is laid out specifically, either fabric that has been cut already, pattern pieces that need to be cut, specific to the type of fabric that requires those pattern pieces. And once I've finished doing that, I'll go through the pieces again and see whether or not any of them need to be cut out in multiple fabrics, like the lining fabric and everything. But I really didn't want to disturb the kind of system that I'd laid everything out in that room, which is why I am down here, because I usually set up my podcast in the sewing room and podcast from up there, but I didn't want to disturb all of that work that I'd put into laying out all of those pattern pieces, just because it means that when I do get a minute to go back, I can literally go straight in and start work without having to wonder where everything is. I think I was a little over ambitious, thinking that I would be able to get this finished really soon. I don't know whether or not it will be finished in time for Christmas. I would love it if it were, because it's going to be such a lovely garment to wear, but I don't want to put too much pressure on myself at this time of year, particularly because I usually make an outfit for Christmas Day. It's been really fun to use the pattern so far. I am enjoying it. It's very clear, it's very precise. I have had to cut a couple of corners in my pattern cutting, which hasn't been great. I usually use a tracing wheel and transfer paper to trace out all of my pattern pieces before I cut them out. But when using kind of tweed, a lot of the time the more waxy transfer paper that you use doesn't transfer well onto kind of textured wool fabrics. So I had to do something which I find quite, it felt like I was going against a lot of ways that I feel about handling patterns and dealing with patterns, but I did cut out my size specifically from the original pattern. I could have traced them and cut them out that way, but there were so many pattern pieces, you guys. I knew that if I sat there and kind of traced each individual size and then used that and left my original pattern piece as it was, which is usually what I prefer to do, that by the time I put all of the work into doing that, I would not want to continue working on this coat because of the amount of pattern pieces that I would have had to do that for. So I went crazy, I went rogue, and I did cut out the actual size that I used from the pattern. I'm rambling now about my sewing project, aren't I? But yes, basically, it is starting. I'm in the process of getting stuff done on the coat. I'm excited about the coat. I really, really want to get upstairs and do some more work on the coat, but it's probably going to be a bit of a longer process than I initially imagined. Yeah. I always set ridiculous goals for myself without really understanding what it is that I'm setting myself up for. Okay guys, that is pretty much everything in terms of the usual segments of the podcast. I told you there wasn't a huge amount for me to share this week, which basically means we have come to one of my favourite parts of the podcast, which is of course General Waffle. General Waffle. And for this week's General Waffle, I want to talk to you about journaling. And yes, I talked last week very briefly about the fact that I am really, really wanting to start a bullet journal, get myself organised, and that, I'm happy to say, is definitely happening. I have been so obsessed this last week with bullet journals and going onto websites about them, following people who do amazing bullet journals on Instagram, on YouTube. I love it. It is my drug of choice for this past week. Finding out about how people use their bullet journals is making me very, very happy. I have got a bullet journal ordered and I will be setting that up for December, and I will be starting my own bullet journal from December. I'm so excited. I have so many ideas. I'm trying to keep it relatively simple to start off with, but as soon as I have more information and more details about that, I do think I will be doing a small kind of video series separate from the podcast, I think, because I don't necessarily want to take up all my podcasting time with bullet journaling. I think that deserves its own little space on this channel. But in the meantime, all of these thoughts about bullet journaling and kind of scrapbooking techniques and all of that type of thing made me really want to restart my knitting journal. So I started a knitting journal at the beginning of this year, and I put a few projects in there, but I have to admit it was a bit of a bust. The way that I was going about doing this journal was just not interesting to me at all. The first mistake that I made is to use a book that was just a regular notebook. It was a beautiful notebook, really, really nice. I really, really love it. But because of its shape, it meant that I couldn't very easily kind of add yarn samples and labels without it slowly expanding into something that sat like this rather than sitting like a book as it would. It kind of was full of things, so it just sat at this constant kind of fat angle, and that really just annoyed me. I thought it didn't look particularly attractive. It wasn't something that I was excited to write in because of the structure that I set up for myself in terms of what I was going to include in the book. And I just lost interest. Something that interests me about the whole bullet journal process is that it's journaling that's completely unique to yourself. You can tailor it to whatever way works for you. And that really appealed to me in terms of having a knitting journal in a similar way. So I decided it was about time that I start up a new knitting journal to start recording all of the projects that I'm making at the moment. And I'm just so happy with it. I'm really excited to share it with you, but I'm going to give you a little tour through my new knitting journal. So I just started this a couple of days ago. I went to my local WH Smith and I picked up this book. It is a ring bound book. It's black. It's quite heavy and thick, and basically this is an art journal. It's A5 size, and I wanted something ring bound to deal with the fact that if I want to add labels and yarn samples to this, that it would be able to kind of grow and not be really compressed, and this seemed like the perfect solution, so I picked this up. I've left the first couple of pages blank because what I do want to do in the long term is create some kind of index for all of the pages that I have in here so far. But I started entering some of the projects that I've been working on. I haven't yet updated this to have all of my current works in progress in here, but it's a good start. And what's interesting is that although I've only entered a few projects in here so far, I can already see a development, an evolution in my style in terms of how I wanted to put these projects in, and I'm already kind of finding things that I prefer more, which is just really exciting. I'm going to show you the first page of the book, which is this one. So this is for my Yule Ball socks, which are my 2 at a time socks that I showed you in my whips section of the podcast. So this is the layout. I started using some washi tape in here. It's something that I saw some people on Instagram using for their bullet journals, and I don't always have time to kind of decorate my journals and books to a really kind of high artistic level, but just using washi tape adds a little bit of colour, a little bit of fun, and I just think it looks really cute. I'm also experimenting with different kinds of text because I do really enjoy changing up my fonts and that type of thing when I'm writing. I'm not very good at it just yet, but it's something that I want to learn to do better in the future. But yes, I have a really nice big bold title, some Yule Ball socks. Then what I've done is included the pattern that I've used, the yarn that I've used, needles that I've used, different techniques that I've used, a started date and a finished date. I've included the yarn label. I don't have labels on every page in this so far because I've lost some of the labels of the yarn that I'm using. And then at the bottom, I have my yarn sample, which is taped in here. And I have created this little key. And the key, the little kind of loading bar as it looks at the bottom, is one of the things that I love the most about this journal so far in terms of everything that I've been doing with it. I decided that something that I needed on my knitting journal was a really clear indication of exactly kind of where I am in the project. It's all very well to have things like the start date and the finish date, which is all written and great, but I am the type of person, I've always been a very visual learner. I respond very well to colour, to shape, that type of thing. I love words, I love written words, but in general, my learning mostly comes from very visual aids. So this little bar is a really quick and easy way for me to be able to see at what point I am with my project. So I have 4 squares that make up the bar. The first square, if that's coloured in, indicates that I have started the project. The second square, if I have the first 2 coloured in, it means that I'm halfway through. The third one, if that's coloured in also, it means that the project is finished in terms of knitting and that it's off the needles. The 4th square, if that is filled in, means that this project, in the words of the Knitmore girls, is finished, which basically means The knitting is done, it's off the needles, it's been blocked, it's been photographed, and it's on Ravelry. So yes guys, this is to show that I have done what I said that I would do a little while ago, and that I've updated my Ravelry page. These first three are obviously more kind of progress in terms of the knitting. This box at the end can be partially filled in when these are still in process if I've started a Ravelry page. So if I have a half shaded square, I know that I've at least created the Ravelry page for that project, and when it's all filled in, it means that everything is finished and documented, and when I see a complete bar along there, I know that the project is finished. I know it sounds a little bit long-winded, but for me it really works, and the idea of kind of colouring things in and making it look pretty is just very, very exciting. So I'm going to show you the next couple of pages, and you can kind of see how my journaling style has changed a little bit. I did a 2-page setup for my next 2 projects. The first one is my August mittens, so you can see my yarn sample down here, some various notes, and then again my little bar at the bottom, 2 shaded in because it is half finished. I also have my start date and my finish date. And then I have my pumpkin spice socks, which I haven't yet filled this in for them to be completely done. Because I only just finished them this morning, like I said, but I do have my yarn sample, and I also started to kind of play around with having kind of little fun pictures and this type of setup. So I think it works well as a double page. The idea is that for all of my smaller projects, they will have one individual page per project. I decided that when it comes to my larger projects, so for example sweaters and that type of thing, they will have a double page spread so that I can really put all of my details about my sweater knitting, because in general I have more to say about that type of thing. The next page setup that I did, I was really starting to feel how I wanted the layout in this journal to be, and it's probably my favourite of all of them that I've done so far, and that is for my toffee apple socks. So as you can see, again, I have the washi tape down the side, but I've included, I cut up the label of the Nora George yarn, of Tracy's lovely yarn, to make it fit. And I also have 2 samples of yarn here. So I have the main colour and the contrast colour. You might be able to tell that the ink that I'm using on this page is slightly different from any of the other pages that I've been using, and that is because I started using a fountain pen as opposed to a fine liner. I know, super fancy using a fountain pen. I haven't used one since I was at school, but I found my old fountain pen in my desk this last week, and I just thought, why not buy some black ink for it and see how it works? And I think it looks really beautiful. I also started experimenting with some different kind of typography. I really, really love how this looks. Like I said, it's not great, it's a little bit wonky. These ones are a bit smaller than the ones at the end, but it's a learning curve. Another thing that I changed in terms of the setup of this is that instead of putting techniques at the bottom, I have just got a notes section. That for me works better because it means I can just write here whatever I want. It gives me more freedom to kind of do anything. And I have my little loading bar again at the bottom. I haven't filled this in just yet for my new sock project, but I can start filling in my square at the bottom because that has now started and on the needles. The next couple of spreads that I have are both for sweaters that you haven't seen in a while, but the sweater layouts that I've done, I'm really, really happy with. The next one, this just makes me incredibly happy. Can you tell I'm just obsessed with doing this at the moment? I could spend hours and hours and hours writing in this. This is my pumpkin spice cardigan spread. Isn't it amazing? So again, slightly different typography. I added in some little pumpkin illustrations, which was amazing. I'm still using my fountain pen. That's definitely my pen of choice. But I haven't also included, if you can see, two of my yarn labels. So this was for the Bowlen DK yarn from Eden Cottage Yarns that I got for this project. I've also included my little yarn sample in the corner here, and as you can see, I started filling in these blocks with a coordinating colour for the yarn, which I think is really, really cute, rather than just doing it with the black ink that I have been writing with. I just think this adds another element. It's so much fun, guys. I love it so much. I have one more spread to share with you. Something that I have been made aware of during the process of making this journal is that I'm a very big fan of cursive writing. I think it looks beautiful. I'd love to be able to do it better myself. But when it comes to kind of titling, I really do prefer this kind of big, bold, capitals, printed style. The next project that I entered, I tried to do something a little bit more fancy, and I really wasn't happy with how it looked. But I've left it because, like I said, it's a learning curve. This is for my wickerwork pullover. So again, I have my washi tape. And guys, I know that every single page I've used the same kind of washi tape in different colours. It's all been this pineapple one, but I do have more on the way. I've ordered a whole load from Amazon, so don't worry, it's going to get different and interesting. But I did a title trying to do something a little bit more fancy and cursive, and it looks okay, but I'm not especially happy with it. With this, I added my yarn sample right away, which is the KAL in the honey colourway. I put down the details of my pattern yarn and needles on the first page. I then included both the front and the back of a KAL label. Got my notes here, and I started to shade in my little progress bar at the bottom. And you may not be able to tell, but this is just green because I thought that went quite well with the rest of the layout of the page. And that's all I've put into here so far. It is an ongoing process, and it's taking quite a while at the moment because I've just started, and also I'm wanting to put in the details of all of my works in progress, and I do have quite a few. And the fun thing about this, and one of the reasons why like I said, I want to keep an index, is that I want to add knitting notes into these. So for example, when I find what my perfect vanilla sock combination is, I want to write that down in here so that I can look back in the future and find it. And I'm just really loving the whole process of writing in here right now. It's incredibly therapeutic. It makes me feel more connected to my projects. It makes me want to work on things that I haven't looked at for a while. For example, I know that I said that in terms of garment knitting, it's been a while since I've worked on the wickerwork pullover or my pumpkin spice cardigan, but spending the time to create these layouts for them just really made me want to go back and work on those projects. So I think for me, this is a great way of being aware of everything that I have on the needles and also how I'm feeling about each one of those projects. So yeah, journaling has become a huge part of my life, and I couldn't be happier. It's like discovering a new part of myself that I never even realised I needed, but it's just great. I love it so much, and I'm very excited to be able to share some more of my kind of personal bullet journal journey, my journal journey, as well as my knitting journal. But if the knitting journal is something that you're interested in, I'll definitely try and have a little moment for it in the future of the podcast as well. So do let me know if that's something that you're interested in. So guys, that's everything for the podcast this week. Thank you so much for watching. As always, it means so much that you want to come and spend a little bit of your day with me. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up or hit subscribe down below. Like I said, lots more fun stuff coming on the channel, so you'll probably want to be kept up to date as to when that's coming. I really hope that you enjoy the last couple of days of November and the beginning of December and Christmas time, if that's what you celebrate, or just enjoy this festive time of year. I hope you have an incredible week filled with crafty goodness. But for now, happy sewing, happy knitting, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!
You're so pretty.